Hi everyone, it's Mrs. McLeod here teaching you a lesson about how to read notes on a staff. We've already learned a little bit about what a staff is. A staff are these 5 lines that we see drawn one over the other. When we draw notes on a staff, we know that if the note is low on the staff, it is a low sound like this, la. But if we make our notes up high on the staff, that means it's a high sound, la. And of course, if it were in the middle, it would be between those two notes. We number the lines from bottom to top. First line, second line, third line, fourth line, and fifth line. But we also number the spaces as well. The spaces matter as well. We can put notes in the spaces. So again, we always count from the bottom, first space, second space, third space, and fourth space. So let's look at these notes above. What line or space are they on? If we were to count them, where would we always start? We always start from the bottom. So the first note that we have here is on a line, and let's count from the bottom and find out what line it's on. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that note is on line 4. Let's look at the next one. Is it a space note or a line note? It's a space note, and we always count up from the bottom. This note is on the first space. So if you thought space 1, you're correct. Let's look at the next one. Is it a line or a space? It's in a space. So let's count up from the bottom. 1, 2, 3. Third space. If you thought third space, you are correct. Let's look at the next note. Is it a line or a space? This note is on a line. And if we count up from the bottom, this is on the first line. So let's see if you can do these other ones by yourself. I'll help you along. Line or space, count up from the bottom. If you thought it was line 5, you are correct. Let's look at this one. Line or space, count up from the bottom. If you thought it was line 3, you are correct. Let's look at this one. Line or space. If you thought it was a space, you are right. Count up from the bottom. Second space, so this note is on the second space. Let's look at this one. Line or space, count up from the bottom, and you'll notice that that is on the fourth space, so space 4. Line or space, count up from the bottom, and this note is on line 2. Next one, line or space, it's in a space, count up from the bottom, space 3, line or space, count up from the bottom, space 1. And the last note that we have here, line or space, count up from the bottom, and your answer should be line 5. Good job. So each of these notes can be located on a staff with different kinds of clefs, and they also have their own names based on the letters of the alphabet. So let's look at these letters of the alphabet. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. If we were to keep on going, what letters would we have now? D, E, F, etc. So you'll notice that as the notes go up the staff, the letters go up as well. And as we go down the staff, the letters go backwards instead. Now the alphabet that we're using is a very short alphabet. Let's find the letter A, that's the beginning, and let's look at the letters. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And when we get to G, we start all over again with A. A, B, C, what would be next? D, E, F. Now if we go back down here, here's the A again. What comes before A in this special alphabet? G comes before A, and F becomes before G, and E comes before F. So our alphabet is really short. We only use 7 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now when we see a big staff with notes or lines up here, but also 5 lines down here, we call this the grand staff. The grand staff has a treble clef and it has a bass clef. And the note that's right in the middle on this gray line here is called middle C. The reason it's called middle C is it is in the middle of these 2 staffs. And it also refers to this note on the piano called middle C. So this note in the middle of the 2 staves, that's plural for staff, is called middle C. It is called that because it is in the middle of the 2 staves and because it is in the middle of the piano keyboard. What notes would be above and below middle C? So let's count up from C. What comes after C in the alphabet? D. So D would be right here if we had a note. E would be right here. F would be right here. G would be right here. A would be right here. B and C, and we're just going up the alphabet to D, E, and F, and we went up one more step, we'd be on G. Now, what if we started on C and went backwards? So what comes before C in the alphabet? Sometimes we have to think about this one. B, and then A, and then G, and then F, and then E, and then D, etc. And you may notice some words that I'm pointing to here. These words will help us remember the names of those notes. So this is a treble clef. It is used for instruments and voices that are a higher pitch, so like a flute or a saxophone or a higher voice. And they are located at the beginning of the staff. Now the names of the lines, if we look at just the line notes, line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, their notes are E, G, B, D, F. Or we can remember this acronym, every good boy deserves fudge. Each one of those first letters is the same as the notes in the treble clef. If we look at just the spaces, we have F, A, this is a C, I see my picture is in the way, and this is an E. So this word actually spells the word face, and face rhymes with space. That should help you remember that word, F-A-C-E. Now let's just have a look up here. If we knew this is E, then the next note would go here in the space, and it would be called F. There it is right there. Here's G. Here's a space between the G and the B, so we call this A. There it is right there. And you can see how if we filled in these gaps, then they would spell face. Those would be our space notes right here. Those are the notes in the treble clef. The bass clef looks like this, and it's used for lower pitch notes. So instruments that play low notes like the tuba, like the trombone, like the tenor saxophone, well, maybe not the tenor saxophone, but the bari saxophone. But low-pitched instruments and low-pitched voices. So we see here is the bass clef. So it's telling us these are low-pitched notes. Now the names of these notes on the lines are a little different than treble clef. They go G, B, D, F, A. And if we shorten that, we have George Brown died Friday afternoon. So we can create an acronym to help remember G, B, D, F, and A. Now the spaces in between G and B, you have the note A, here it is. The space in between B and D, right here, is C, and here it is. The space in between D and F is E, and here it is. And the space between F and A is G, and here it is. So for our space notes in the bass clef, we have A, C, E, and G. An acronym for that is All Cows Eat Grass. So that's a way to remember the names of the bass clef notes. So remember when it was treble clef, it was F-A-C-E. In bass clef, it's A-C-E-G instead. So here are a lot of the names on the grand staff. We'll start here at C, but we could have notes here on this line, which would be B, and a note that would be here, which would be A, and a note that's right here, which would be G. And if we count it up in the alphabet, we would get all the way to middle C. Middle C is always easy to remember because there's a little line through the middle of it. And then we could carry on up into C and past C to D, E, F, G. So on this slide, when you're looking at it on your own, you can look at what line or space are you on, what clef are you in, and think about your acronyms. So for instance, here is a note in the treble clef. It's on the second line. And for lines, we remember every good boy deserves fudge. That means that is G. This is a space note in the treble clef. And for spaces, we use the word face, which rhymes with space. So we always count on the bottom, F, A, C, E. So that note is a C. Here we have a line note in the treble clef. It's on the second line. So we use every good boy deserves fudge. So this note is a G. Here we have this note here on the top line in the treble clef. So we count up from the bottom. Every good boy deserves fudge. So those are some treble clef notes, and you can practice the rest in your own slideshow. Here in the bass clef, so we have to think with different acronyms now. So we're bass clef, first space. For spaces, we use all cows eat grass. So this is the first space in the bass clef. So this note is the same as all, which is the letter A. So that's actually an A. Here we are on the third space. Again, space in the bass clef. So we count all cows eat grass. So that note would be an E. Here we have a line note, the second line in the bass clef. For the lines, we say George Brown died Friday afternoon. So this would be a B for Brown, and that would be the note B. And another line note, we have a line note on the fourth line in the bass clef. So we use George Brown died Friday afternoon. That means that note is an F. So in your own slide deck, you can practice these as well. Remember, use your acronyms. Now, when you get to the last slide, you can click on this button, which will bring you to a game where you can practice naming your notes, treble clef and bass clef. And for those of you who are advanced and already have musical experience and are used to sharps and flats as well, which have not been addressed in this lesson, this is more for more advanced players, you can click on this button and it will take you to an activity where you can practice using notes that are in the treble clef and the bass clef and also have sharps and flats. So try practicing these first, and then you can work in your notebook to work on pages that address naming notes in the treble clef. Thank you. Thanks for watching, everyone. Good luck.